Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Ezekiel 40 and 41. Now, in these chapters, Ezekiel sees an angelic being, bronze in appearance, majestic, and he sees him standing with a rod in his one hand. It's around about 3 meters in length, so it's a meter bigger than this. It's a measuring rod. And then also with a linen cord, much like this seamstress's tape measure. And so he takes him on a guided tour around the temple in Jerusalem. So he starts at the east gate, and then he says, he takes him to he measures everything. He measures the walls, he measures the doors, he measures the portico, he measures the rooms, he measures where the priests stay. And he returns. After he's taken this whole tour, he comes back to the eastern gate, and he's got a very solemn announcement to make that Ezekiel's got to make to those who are in exile. And you've got to ask yourself, well, what does this mean? Well, firstly, we need to understand what temple he's talking about here. So that the tabernacle that we know of began with Moses. Moses built the tabernacle, and then Solomon built the temple. That was destroyed, and then during the time of Nehemiah and Ezra, they rebuilt the temple again. And then obviously there was Herod's temple at the time of Jesus. And so, what temple is this? Well, there are 4 varying views, and let me give you them one by one. The first one is that this temple is actually it's a figurative thing. It's ideological. It's describing the glorious presence of God with his people. And the gates speak of open access to God. This is a feasible way of looking at it. The only problem was that he goes into such detail of the dimensions of windows and doors and sizes of things. Why the detail if it's purely figurative? And of course, we see in Ephesians 2 and in 1 Corinthians 3, the temple does signify the universal church of Jesus and local churches, but just because the temple is used as an image describing the local church and universal church doesn't mean that this particular one and all its dimensions have direct bearing on the local church. Anyway, that's one particular view. Then there's another view, is that Ezekiel was given the plans for post-captivity. When the Israelites came back, they were to rebuild the temple. But if that was true, well, the Jewish remnant didn't know about it because they didn't build according to these specifications. They built Solomon's one. And when the old men wept who had seen Solomon's temple, they were weeping not because they hadn't built according to Ezekiel's plan, it's because they hadn't built according to Solomon's plan. So I'm not sure that this one refers to the temple that's immediately going to be rebuilt after they finished exile. Remember, this is like only 10, 12 years into their exile, speaking of another temple. The third view is that this is speaking in anticipation of what John saw in Revelation 21. Remember, there was also a man there with a measuring line, measuring things, a glorious city, also a river flowing from it, very similar to this one. However, John was looking at a city, and he was told explicitly there wasn't a temple in that city. So I'm not sure that it's that one. And then there's this view that he was describing something that Christ was going to rule from in the millennium. Now, there are different views of the millennium. So depending on what you view of the millennium depends on whether it's that. But the bottom line is this. The bottom line is Ezekiel is saying to the exiles, amid very solemn messages surrounding this temple, and we'll read that for the next 8 chapters from now, that God's plan is to be among his people. God's plan is that they worship him. God's plan is that worship is not accidental, but it's according to God's ways. He wants our hearts wholly devoted to him. The temple is a picture of that. What God is going to do in the future, his glorious reign on earth, his glorious reign for all eternity, we're not too sure of the specific details. Chapters like this give us glimpses of what it could look like and to anticipate and look forward to. God bless you as you go through these verses.